I got a call last month from a neighbor of mine, older fella, retired school teacher, and he told me his door had started making a sound like a shopping cart wheel stuck in a pothole. Every single time it opened. He was 2 seconds from calling a garage door company and paying somebody $150 to show up, spray something out of a can, and leave. I told him to hang on a second. I grabbed a rag, a can of silicone spray I already had in my truck, and I fixed the whole thing in his driveway in about 20 minutes. Free of charge because that's what neighbors do. But it got me thinking. A lot of you are out there listening to that same grinding, squeaking, popping door every single day and just living with it, or worse, paying somebody else to do something you could have done yourself on a Saturday morning with a $5 can of spray. So that's what we're doing today. I'm going to walk you through exactly why your garage door is getting louder, exactly what to put on it, exactly what never to touch, and I'm going to tell you about the one mistake almost every homeowner in America makes that actually makes the noise worse over time instead of better. By the end of this, you'll know the difference between the 3 lubricants the pros actually use. You'll know which parts of your door are dangerous enough that I want you to leave them alone completely. And you'll know how to make a tune-up like this last you a good 6 months to a year before you need to do it again. This isn't complicated. It's about 20-25 minutes of your time, and it costs less than a fast food meal for 2. My name's Frank. For a little over 30 years, I worked as an emergency mitigation and repair technician, contracted out through home insurance companies. That means when a house got hit by a storm, or a pipe let go in the middle of the night, or something caught fire, I was one of the first guys through the door, not the adjuster, not the contractor who does the real rebuild, me. My job was stop the bleeding, so to speak. Board up the window, tarp the roof, shut off the water, get things stable so the place doesn't get worse before the professionals show up to do the real work. Now, garage doors weren't my main specialty, but let me tell you, I have seen more mangled garage doors than just about anybody you'll ever meet. Cars that got trapped inside during a flood because the door seized up. Doors that got knocked half off their tracks in a windstorm. And more than a few homes where a homeowner tried to fix a noisy door themselves, went after the wrong part, and ended up in worse shape than when they started. So this isn't theory for me. This is stuff I've had my hands on more times than I can count. Here's the injustice part, and it's a small one, but it adds up. Garage door companies make a good chunk of their income off basic tune-up calls. And a lot of those calls, not all, but a lot, are stuff a homeowner could do themselves in the time it takes to watch a ball game inning. I'm not saying garage door techs are crooks. Most of them are decent, hardworking people. But the information about how to do this yourself just doesn't get out there very often, and when it does, half of it's wrong. People grab whatever's under the kitchen sink, usually a can of WD-40, spray it everywhere, and wonder 6 months later why the door's louder than it was before they touched it. Stick around because I'm going to show you exactly why that happens and how to actually fix it right the first time. So here's what most people get wrong, and it's a big one. They reach for WD-40 and treat it like a lubricant. It is not a lubricant. The name WD-40 literally stands for water displacement, 40th formula. It was developed to prevent corrosion and displace moisture off metal, not to keep moving metal parts running smooth long term. It's a solvent and a light degreaser. It'll clean off old grease and grime, and it'll free up a rusted bolt or hinge in a pinch, and for that, it's a great product to have in your garage, but the stuff is designed to evaporate. That's literally part of how it works. So when you spray it on a hinge or a roller, you get maybe a day or two of quiet, and then it dries out, and worse, it attracts dust and dirt to whatever's left behind. I've walked into more than one garage over the years where a fella proudly showed me his maintenance routine of hosing the whole door down with WD-40 twice a year, and I had to be the one to tell him that's actually part of why his door sounds like a freight train. If you take one thing away from this video, let it be that. Put the WD-40 back under the sink for the jobs it's actually good at, and let's talk about what you should be using instead. There's really 3 products the pros lean on. And I want to go through each one honestly, because none of them is perfect for every single spot on the door. First one is white lithium grease. This stuff makes a strong, thick film, and it holds up a long time under heavy friction, which makes it great for certain jobs. The downside is it can attract some dust over time, and if you're heavy-handed with it, it leaves a white residue that's a little messy to clean up. Second one is a silicone spray. sometimes labeled as dry lube. This one goes on clean, dries without leaving that oily film, and it doesn't pull in near as much dust and grit as the lithium grease does. It's also the one I'd lean toward if you live somewhere dusty or sandy because it just doesn't collect debris the same way. Third one is a dedicated garage door oil, the kind you'll find sold specifically for this. 3-in-1 garage door lube is a common one you'll see on the shelf. These are built for metal-on-metal contact, and they do the job well, but the trade-off is they can drip if you use too much. And I mean drip on your car, drip on your garage floor, that kind of mess. Out of those three, my go-to, and what most of the garage door specialists I've known over the years reach for first, is silicone spray. I'm not going to tell you to buy one specific brand. There's a handful of good ones out there running you somewhere around $7 to $10 a can, and any one of them will do right by you. I just happen to keep one in my truck because it's clean, it's versatile, and it works for almost every spot we're about to cover. Total cost for this whole job, if you don't already have anything, figure $10 to $15 for a can of silicone spray and maybe a shop rag you've probably already got in a drawer somewhere. Compare that to a garage door company tune-up call, which around most parts of the country runs somewhere between $100 and $200 depending on where you live and what they find. That's the math right there before we've even started. Now, before we touch a single bolt, I need to talk safety, and I want you to actually listen to this part, not skip ahead. Your garage door is the heaviest moving object in most people's homes. A standard double door can weigh anywhere from 130 to over 250 pounds depending on the material, and that whole thing is held up under serious spring tension. In this video, we are not touching anything that involves that tension directly. We are not loosening any springs, we are not adjusting set screws, we're not pulling bottom brackets off, and we are absolutely not touching winding bars. I've heard secondhand from guys in the trade about techs who took a winding bar to the face because they made a mistake on a torsion spring. That's not an exaggeration for effect. That's a real risk with real consequences, and I take it seriously. Everything I'm walking you through today is safe for a homeowner to do with the door fully assembled and at rest. If at any point you're looking at a part and thinking, should I loosen this to get a better angle? The answer is no. Leave it be. All right, let's get into it, piece by piece. Starting at the top of the door and working our way down to the opener. First stop, the hinges. These are the metal pieces connecting each panel of your door together, and they pivot every time the door opens and closes. Give each pivot point a light, quick spray of silicone. You do not need to soak these. A little goes a long way, and if you overdo it, it just runs down and makes a mess on your floor. I like holding a rag underneath while I spray so any extra gets caught right there instead of dripping everywhere. Next, the rollers. Now, some of you have got the older metal rollers, and some of you, especially if you watched my last video, have upgraded to nylon rollers. If you've got exposed bearings, whether metal or nylon, give the stem and bearing area a light shot. If your rollers have sealed bearings, which most quality nylon rollers do, there's nothing to spray in there. That's kind of the whole point of a sealed bearing. It doesn't need it. But here's the important part. Do not spray the wheel of the roller itself, and never ever spray it directly onto the track. We'll get to why the track needs to stay bone dry in a minute. Now we get to the torsion spring, and I want you to pay close attention here because this is the one spot where a wrong move can genuinely hurt somebody. The torsion spring runs across the top of your garage door opening, and on each end it's wound onto a cone. Do not lubricate the very ends of the spring where it connects to that cone. Those end coils are what's called dead coils. They don't move, and if you get lubricant on them, it can actually cause the spring to slip under all that stored tension. What you do want to lubricate is the active coils, the part in the middle that flexes and moves every time the door cycles. A light, even spray across those moving coils is all you need. Then open and close the door a couple times afterward to work the lubricant in evenly. Moving down, we hit the bearing plates, which sit on either side supporting that spring assembly. These take a heavy load constantly, and they're almost always bone dry because nobody thinks to touch them. A small shot of lubricant here makes a noticeably bigger difference than you'd expect for such a small spot. Spray it. Wipe up whatever runs off. Next is the drum and end bracket area where the lift cable winds up. This is a spot almost every homeowner misses completely, and it's a real friction point. A light spray right where the drum meets the bracket goes a long way toward extending the life of that whole mechanism. After that, the bottom bracket where your lift cable connects. I want to be clear again here. We are not loosening or adjusting anything at this bracket, just a light mist for rust prevention. That's genuinely all that spot needs. If your door runs on the older extension spring system, meaning you've got springs running along the horizontal tracks instead of that single torsion spring up top, you'll also have pulleys to deal with. One small spray on each side. Wipe up any extra. If you're not sure which system you've got, take a look up top. Torsion spring is a single thick spring mounted horizontally right above the door opening. Extension springs run alongside the horizontal tracks near the ceiling. Either way, the rule stays the same across this whole job. Anywhere you see bare metal rubbing against bare metal, that's a spot that wants a little lubrication. Anywhere else, leave it alone. Now, if you've gone through all of that and the door is still noisy, the sound's probably coming from your opener, not the door hardware itself. So let's head over there next. If you've got a chain drive opener, that's the kind with an actual metal chain running along the rail, give it a light spray. These chains usually come pre-lubricated from the factory, but after a few years sitting out in the heat and cold and dust of your garage, that factory coating dries up. Spray it lightly, wipe off anything extra, but don't put anything on the rail itself where there's no metal-on-metal contact happening. You can, though, put a light film on the metal rail specifically where it's touching metal. That'll quiet things down as the trolley slides back and forth. Just don't overdo it because too much and it'll be dripping onto your car hood or your garage floor, and nobody wants that. If you've got a belt drive opener instead, and belt drives are popular because they run quieter to begin with, do not lubricate the rubber belt itself. Only lubricate the metal rail, and even then just a small amount. And if you've got the older screw drive system, where a metal rod threads the trolley along, you can apply a thin coat of white lithium grease along the full length of that screw shaft. This is one upgrade that on its own can cut down a surprising amount of the noise these older openers are known for. Now here's the list of things you do not touch, and this part matters just as much as everything I just told you to do. Never lubricate the tracks, the metal rails your rollers actually run inside of. Don't spray anything near the safety sensors, those little eyes mounted near the bottom of the tracks that stop the door. If something's in the way, you do not want any residue clouding those up. Don't lubricate the rubber belt on a belt drive opener, don't spray plastic components, and don't spray painted surfaces. I want to spend a second on the tracks specifically because this is the mistake I see more than almost any other. People think, well, everything else got a spray, might as well do the tracks too. Don't. Tracks need to stay dry and clean, full stop. If you lubricate them, two things happen. First, they start pulling in dirt and grime like a magnet. Second, and this is the part people don't expect, it actually makes your rollers perform worse, not better. Your rollers are designed to roll along that dry track. Once you get lubricant and dust built up in there, they stop rolling clean and start sliding and catching instead. Think about pushing a shopping cart through a store and one wheel hits a patch of something sticky and just skids instead of turning. That's exactly what happens to your door when the tracks get lubed up. So instead, take a clean rag and just wipe the tracks down. Clear off the dust, the cobwebs, the built-up grime. And use a rag, not your bare hand, because there's sharp edges on that track hardware that'll open up your knuckle before you know what happened. One more spot almost nobody thinks to check, the panel joints, meaning the seams where each section of your door connects to the next. Dust and grit build up in those seams over time, and it can create its own grinding or popping sound completely separate from the hardware. A light mist of silicone right on those joints, or spray it onto your rag first, and wipe it along the seam, and that noise often clears right up. If you'd rather spend 25 minutes fixing this yourself than pay somebody else to, go ahead and hit subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. That's really all it takes to help me keep making videos like this one for you. Now, let's talk about why all of this actually works, in plain terms, because I think understanding the why helps it stick. Friction is the enemy here. Every time two pieces of metal move against each other without something between them, you get resistance, you get heat, and eventually you get wear. That resistance is what you're hearing as squeaking and grinding. A lubricant's whole job is to create a thin film between those two metal surfaces so they glide instead of grind. Silicone spray works well for this because the silicone molecules bond to metal surfaces and stay slick without turning gummy the way some oils do over time. That's also why it resists picking up dust compared to a heavier grease. There's less tackiness for particles to stick to. White lithium grease works through a similar principle, but it's thicker, which is exactly why it holds up longer under a heavy, constant load like a screw drive shaft. But that same thickness is what makes it more prone to collecting grit in an open, exposed spot. And WD-40 doesn't really lubricate in the traditional sense at all. It displaces moisture and cuts through old grime, which is genuinely useful, just not for this particular job. None of this is complicated chemistry. It's the same basic principle whether you're talking about a garage door, a bicycle chain, or a door hinge in your house. Keep the moving metal parts fed. Keep the parts that are supposed to stay dry actually dry, and don't mix those two categories up. Let's talk money for a second, because I know that's part of why you're watching this instead of just calling somebody. A standard garage door tune-up from a service company typically runs somewhere between $100 and $200 depending on your area and what they find while they're out there. Some companies will bundle in a full inspection, tightening hardware, balance checks, and that can push the price higher, sometimes $250 or more if they find something that needs replacing. Now, I'm not telling you those services are worthless. There's real value in having somebody check your spring tension and cable condition once in a while, especially if your door's older or you've never had it looked at. But the basic lubrication piece, the part we just walked through, that's not worth paying somebody $150 for. You've got maybe $15 in materials and 25 minutes of your Saturday. Do that twice a year. Spring and fall is a good rhythm for most climates, and you'll likely stretch the life of your rollers, your hinges, and your opener chain or belt considerably, which means you're also avoiding the bigger repair bills down the road, replacement rollers, a new opener chain, that kind of thing. I'd estimate a well-maintained door and opener system can run you years longer between major part replacements compared to one that never gets touched. That's not a guarantee. Every house and every door is different, but it's the pattern I've seen play out over and over in 30 years of walking into people's garages. I've also put together a free home repair guide with checklists, tool lists, and the fixes every homeowner ought to know how to handle themselves. It's linked right below this video in the description, and it covers a lot more than just garage doors, so if this kind of thing is useful to you, go grab it. It doesn't cost you anything. So here's what I'd like you to do this weekend. Grab a can of silicone spray, a shop rag, and set aside about 25 minutes. Start at the top with your hinges, light spray on each pivot point, move to your rollers, spray the stem and expose bearings, skip the wheel itself, and skip the track completely. If you've got a torsion spring, spray only the active coils in the middle, never the dead coils at the ends near the cones. Hit your bearing plates, your drum and bracket area, and your bottom bracket connection with a light mist. If you've got the extension spring system, don't forget the pulleys, then head to your opener. Chain drive gets a light spray on the chain and the metal rail. Belt drive gets the metal rail only, never the belt. Screw drive gets a thin coat of white lithium grease down the length of the shaft. Wipe your tracks clean with a dry rag, don't spray them. Skip the safety sensors, the plastic pieces, and any painted surface entirely. And finish up with a light mist on your panel joints if you're still hearing any popping or grinding in the seams. Cycle the door a few times when you're done to work everything in evenly, and stand back and enjoy how much quieter that thing sounds compared to 25 minutes ago. And if you haven't upgraded your rollers yet, go check out my earlier video on installing quiet nylon rollers. I'll have it linked up in the corner here. Between new rollers and a proper lubrication routine, most folks are shocked at how much of a difference it makes. It's honestly a completely different door. Drop a comment below and tell me, what's the worst repair quote you've ever gotten for something you ended up fixing yourself for way less? I read every one of them, and I'd genuinely like to hear your story. And don't forget, that free home repair guide is linked in the description below if you want to keep building out your own toolkit of fixes like this one. Fixing it right isn't about being fancy, it's about taking care of what you've got and the people who depend on you.